start.
We're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of You Only Be School Once, powered by Inside IIM. I'm your host, Akshay Sirsalewala. For those who've tuned in for the first time, I'm a chartered accountant. I've cleared all levels of CFA, and currently I'm working with BCG as a consultant. Today is a very special session. Recently, we've seen a surge in people wanting to go for prodman roles. So we thought, why not do a session which is aimed specifically for those aspirants who want a top prodman role on campus. And to answer all your questions, we have a great panel working in one of the in almost all top prodman companies of India. So without further ado, let's start with the introductions. Mansi, let's start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Akshay. So hi, everyone. My name is Mansi Mittal. I did my graduation from IIT Jodhpur, focusing on computer science, then went on to work for Visa as their developer. For 3 years, I was with them. But before joining ISB to pursue my MBA, I took a break and did an internship with a startup for 3 months in the capacity of a product management intern. And now I just graduated like 2 weeks before. And tomorrow is my first day of Microsoft as PM2. So happy to be here with all the esteemed panelists with me, and great looking forward to the session. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mansi, first for joining here just one day before your job starts. I'm sure the aspirants will really value your presence here. Thank you so much, Mansi. Ria, why don't you go next?
Sure, thank you, Akshay. So my name is Ria Nima, and I completed my engineering in information technology branch. After that, I was working with Accenture for 2.5 years as an analyst. And after that, I started my MBA with IIM Indore. And since then, I was a part of a lot of clubs there. And right now, I'm working with Walmart as a PM. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the session, and thanks for like coming up on Sunday and like giving this opportunity. I'm really looking forward.
Thank you, Ria. We too are looking forward to hear your thoughts. Thanks a lot for coming in. Shikhar, why don't you go next?
Sure, thanks Akshay. Hi everyone, this is Shikhar Sachdeva. I am a recent graduate of IIM Ahmedabad and currently working as a product manager with Sprinkler. A little bit about my background. I am an engineer from DTU. I did my engineering in information technology, post which I worked for a little above 2 years with Bain & Company. And so that's my pre-MBA background. During the course of my MBA, I did internships with BCG as part of the campus internship program, and then an internship with ShareChat as a PM intern. So I've been with Sprinkler for about a month now, and yeah, really happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikhar. Thank you so much for joining in. Lastly, Sunidhi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. So I'm Sunidhi Sahai from Pune. I have majored in ENTC from Pune University. I have an engineering background, and post that I worked with Accenture for 2.5 years. Then I joined IIM Kozhikode. So I'm a second year student right now, and I've recently completed my summer internship with Optum as a product management intern. Really looking forward to having a great discussion with all of you.
Great, guys. So as you can see, we have people from different colleges, from different types of companies, and so they will be able to answer all your questions. So if you have any queries specifically, please do mention it in the comments. We'll try to take it up as and when we can. What we will do is we will answer all your queries today with respect to what kind of roles come on campus, who is the ideal fit for such roles, what kind of CV do companies look for, what are the skills which they look for. So if you have any other queries apart from the ones which I've stated, please do let us know. We'll try to take them up, in the conversation. Okay, so let's start with the first question, which is what exactly is product management, and what kind of roles come on campus? So there is many, before you join a B school, there is not a lot of information on what exactly do prodman people do, what exactly is product management. So why don't you shed some light on your, and maybe give some experience with respect to your own with respect to your own company.
So I think the product manager as a role, I would define it's a owner of the product. So you have the complete responsibility from like you have to take care of the product as your child. So you have to decide like what will be the UI, the UX, what will be the technicalities. So it's an amalgamation of the technical as well as the non-technical and the business side. And here we create a product which can be very useful for the customer. And I think it's a complete coherence of business, technicalities, and everything which comes into your mind when you look around yourself. So yeah, that's how I define the product manager role as.
Right. I think
Sure. Sunidhi, go ahead.
they are rightly pointed out. And I would say a product manager basically is right there from, when there's the ideating the product, basically, right from the very beginning, where there's product ideation, bringing out how the product is actually solving the issues of the customers with obviously a business objective. And then till the end, when the product is actually shipped to the customer. And even after that, how the customers are responding to the product, how can we incorporate the feedback? Basically, in all the entire, right from the beginning till the end, the product manager is involved in all of the aspects.
Right. So, I had read a very interesting quote. Someone told me that a product manager is like a mini CEO. So do you guys agree with this?
So I think my own view is that I sort of disagree with it. It's a very, off-running quote to define the product management roles per se, that it's a mini CEO. But I don't think that, so a CEO has more of a decision-making authority. They can delegate tasks. A product manager has more responsibility. So they take the ask of their own, say, business leadership and the customer on the one hand, and then they have to bring out that vision in the form of the product. So it's not really a CEO role in that, you can take any decision whatsoever. There are stakeholders above and beyond you who sort of guide that direction that you take.
So are you saying that basically you guys execute the vision which is provided by the top management? So not exactly the CEO. Is that what you're saying?
So I think one thing good to mention here is that it depends on where you are entering. If you are entering as an APM, then your responsibilities or your decision-making power might be limited. But in case you are a group product manager or you are at a higher level, then rather than just having tactical the responsibilities, you will also have say in the strategical point of view. So it's not just that the vision comes from anywhere else. The product vision is to be set by the product management only, but it depends on what kind of a hierarchy your company is following. Also, Akshay, coming to your second question where you asked like what are the different type of roles which comes to product management. So in my experience, there are like even vertically, there would be a lot of different roles coming. For example, APM, product management, product manager 2, given ISB focuses on experience of folks. So there's a large variety of experience. Then even if you talk about horizontally, there would be a lot of industries, different industries role coming in. There would be someone, maybe browser stack or postman, looking for a TPM per se because they need technical abilities more. And there would be someone, say Nika and Swiggy, which might be looking at the business side more. So there would be a vertical differentiation also, and even the horizontal. That's my take, and other people can also add to it.
I think absolutely agree with what Mansi mentioned, but just to, provide my own perspective on it, I think there is also a difference between, say, B2B versus a B2C product manager. So within a B2B setup, it's much more about, tackling to the needs of those individual large customers that you have, versus in a B2C setup, it's more about, catering to aggregate needs. So say within a B2C setup, say if there are 100,000 customers, 80,000 might want one thing, 20,000 might want another thing. So you have to sort of deal in those trade-offs. It's also a little bit about what part of the product development cycle you focus on. So I think Sunidhi had mentioned that, there is this entire cycle about gathering requirements, the development phase, and then the post-development phase where you're looking at the business and selling aspect of the product. So a lot of companies differentiate between those roles. So the entire development-oriented product manager is usually called a technical program manager or a technical product manager in some companies, whereas the ones that are looking for looking after the initial and the final stages of the product are more often called business product managers or product marketing managers. So it usually depends company to company of how narrowly or broadly they have defined that role.
Very, very, very interesting. So basically, guys, just to summarize, you have firstly there could be differences vertically. You could be joining in as an APM or PM2, etc. Now, normally what happens is you get these options, you get more of these options in ISB, not normally in IIMs, just because of the fact that in ISB the work experience criteria is there, whereas in IIMs you might find 50% of the batch probably being freshers. So I don't think you get that much experience. You get those options in IIMs. But in ISB, definitely, then there could be differences horizontally. The role could be very different in, let's say, a Microsoft versus a Swiggy or a Nykaa. And lastly, as Shikhar mentioned, which part of the product development cycle you are a part of. These are some of the differences which could be there. Now, let's take the first question from an audience member called Adarsh. He has asked us that which MBA specialization would be suitable for a product management role. Now, before I give it up to the panelists, Adarsh, I'll tell you that in IIMs normally there is no specialization. So we do a general MBA. But guys, what are your views? Do you think that any specific MBA specialization would help your chances?
So I can take that up. Hi, Adarsh. Thank you for the question. So in our case, interviews generally happen when we are like just 3-4 months into the program, because it's just a 1-year program for ISB. So I did major in IT, and I did 2 majors. One was IT and the other was strategy and leadership. So these are something which most product managers do in ISB. And the third one is marketing, that people generally go for. But in interviews per se, it might be that these are not particularly asked. It might help you, the courses might help you when you are on the job and when you're doing it, when you're doing the job per se. So this is my take on it, like strategy, IT, and marketing are the 3 majors which I think kind of align with what product manager does.
Great. So I think, yeah, Sunidha, you were saying something?
So what Mansi said, for product manager, I was actually confused as to what subject should be taken in my second year for this role. So I connected with some of the product managers working in Microsoft and Walmart to get a feel of, what domain should I actually look into when I'm choosing my subjects. Right. So same goes, like a mix of IT, strategy, and marketing is something that I've opted for right now to actually, align myself with the product management domain.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Adarsh. Others has asked a second question, so let's maybe take that up as well. He wants to understand the difference between a product owner and a product manager.
So, I mean, as per my experience, there isn't any hard and fast difference. It just depends on company to company. A product owner, as I have seen it, is usually a more seasoned professional. So, like a product owner would be in some companies equivalent to a group product manager, where they would have a larger product under their purview, and then there would be individual product managers under them. So, I mean, so broadly, I'll say this is a very up and coming field. So companies tend to do it very differently. Just like consulting as a domain has it has developed over a period of time, and so it is fairly uniform across companies and across verticals.
Right.
That is not the case with product management. It is coming up right now, so companies are sort of figuring out all of these things.
So
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ria.
Yes,
so adding to the point which Shikhar said, so usually the startup which are coming up, they try to name it as a product owner rather than a product manager. This is I have seen like the general scenario, but it's an upcoming field. So even the companies are figuring out the roles and responsibility a product manager or a product owner would own. So it's usually the synonymous words, but it can vary from companies to companies because they can dedicate different responsibility to the product managers and they would call them as a product owner. But as far as I can conclude, there is no difference in both the profiles.
So completely agree with this. Like there is no, it's basically just the designation or the name of the thing is different. It might be that the work is very overlapping or similar in some cases. So one thing I studied somewhere was during a certification of CSPO that product owner is the official name in Scrum that you call a product manager, and then product manager is the designation. So that was one of the difference that I had read, but there's no such difference. Others, you'll have to go ahead and actually go through the roles and responsibilities of your company.
Great. Thank you guys for that. Let's also go through one more question from the audience, which is asked by Dipanji. I have done BTech in mechanical engineering, and I'll be pursuing my MBA from IIM Raipur. I want to know, how do I prepare for product management roles? Mansi, Dipanji, we will be taking this question later on, and we'll be discussing it in a lot of detail. So just hold on, and we'll definitely answer that. Okay. Okay, let's just take one last question from the audience, and then we'll come back to our set of questions. So Soumya has asked a very interesting question. She has asked that, is an MBA a must for people coming in, let's say, from tier 2 or 3 colleges to break into product management? And I think this is a favorite question asked for any field, even for consulting or for finance. So guys, what do you think? Is an MBA a must? And the thing is, I'm asking this to 4 MBAs, so I'm interested to know the answer.
So definitely not. An MBA is not required. So I'll tell you my story. Before even joining ISB, I did the internship with one of the startups, one of the London-based startups. I did it for 3 months and did not do any MBA. They were not aware that I'm going to do an MBA. And after 3 months of internship, they offered me full-time. So before joining ISB, I had an offer of product management, and I was thinking, why am I doing an MBA now? But it's more about the learning for me and the networking and the peers. That's why I chose to do an MBA, but it's definitely not required.
And I mean, I do know a few batchmates from engineering who've transitioned from dev roles and tech roles into product side roles. So companies in a lot of cases do actually want people from within, say, a Microsoft and an Amazon. If someone has been a developer for, say, 2-3 years, Microsoft or Amazon would want them to, if they want to transition into a product role, to stay internally and transition, because one, they will have more knowledge, and secondly, they would avoid employee attrition. So companies actually do want their employees to transition into product roles even without doing an MBA, and they have those opportunities in place.
Right. So I hope that answered your question, Soumya. Right. Now let's move on to a very typical, a very, very often asked question. And I think Weber has also asked a similar type of question, that do we need to have coding knowledge? And this also brings us to one more question, which is asked a lot by a lot of aspirants, is that, can non-engineers make it as a product manager? Now, I know that on this panel, the only non-engineer is me, and I don't have a product man job, right? But what do you think? Can non-engineers also make it as a product man? And if they can, I mean, do you have any words or advice to them on what they can do so that their chances increase, guys? Yes, Riya, please.
I think the non-engineers can definitely get into this kind of role. So in my during my internship, there were like 15 or 20 interns from different colleges who joined Walmart. So I've seen like half of them, 50% of them were non-engineers, and they were coming from different backgrounds like arts and like commerce and all. So even companies want diversity at that level. So they would also want the product managers coming from different backgrounds, so they can have different insights. So I would say that for non-engineers, they can definitely get into it. But the one thing given is they should equip themselves with the knowledge which is going in the technology industry. And I think no industry is is devoid of technology now. So it's not only like product management field. I think it applies, it goes into the consulting, into the financial thing also. So I think it's not necessary for one to be an engineer for getting into a product management field. So yeah, that's my take.
Great. I think, yes, please. Sunidhi, you
Also,
were saying something, yes.
yeah, no knowledge of coding is required, at least what I've come across. I've heard rumors about people worrying, like, I'll have to code if I join this domain, or I'll have to learn coding or something, but that's not true. And also talking about engineering or a non-engineer, I believe the right skill set, if the person has the right skill set that is needed for the job, is applicable, but it's not necessary that you have to have an engineering or a software engineering background. Even a person from a commerce background can be tech savvy or can actually be interested in technology and be up to date with what's going on. And that would also work if the person, is aware of what's going on. So no need of to have an official software engineering background, especially for this.
So even when Google came to our campus, like in any of our interviews, there was no you have to code it question asked.
Okay.
So even like Microsoft, Google never asked those kind of questions. It's not expected for you to even like know any language or code or anything. It depends on what background you have and what you have said on the resume that they'll be like talking about. And secondly, your second question was then what advice for those people who are kind of coming from a non-engineering backgrounds. So I think it matters how you position your resume, how you kind of show your inclination or passion about product or technology in general, that you can portray in your resume. Maybe you did a lot of case competitions, maybe did your own portfolio, case studies. So you have to show that courses or certifications that you are not from there, but you are so passionate that on the side also you have been kind of pursuing it. So that kind of an extra effort would be required, I would say.
Just to add to this, a different flavor to the conversation, I do know of a few companies that prefer engineers and also have a preference for some amount of coding experience. Now, that amount of coding experience can be it could be just having done some serious projects in undergrad, or having done worked in a dev role for an year or two maybe. But there are a few companies who have that preference. But overall, the field of product management does not have a preference for engineers over non-engineers. And secondly, in terms of a word of advice, I would say that a lot of your work is going to be directly working with the developer. So you're not actually going to be doing the coding part per se, but you're actually going to be guiding them towards the vision. So you have to understand how to talk to that person, because a developer is going to be a core engineer. They are not going to be someone from a business background. So you cannot be talking to them in business jargon. So you need to understand how they deal, what are the constraints that are there within their job, because at the end of the day, without having any functional superiority, you're not their manager. So without having that kind of a role mapping with them, you still have to get work done from them. And for that, you need to understand tech.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. So guys, basically, if I were to summarize it, it's not necessary to be from an engineering background or have that tech knowledge, but if you have it, great. I think it will help you specifically deal with your peers as well. All right. Okay, so after that, let's now talk about the core skills. We spoke about IT skills. Let's talk about core skills which are needed. And that is a question which is asked by Vaibhav, that what kind of skills do Prodman companies look for? So guys, what are the skills which they look for? I think it's a very broad question, but still, yes, Sunidhi.
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to my mind is definitely customer empathy. So essentially you're building a product which is to be used by someone at a later point of time. So it has to be something that, is solving a problem for them or is enhancing their life in some manner, and shouldn't be actually complicating things that they currently do. So customer empathy is something which is very important. And also I believe a strong strategic decision-making is something which is required, because for any product, if let's say if you're building a new product, there can be many things that can be done with it. Like you can add just features, you can glam it and do everything. But a product manager should know what needs to be prioritized and what needs to actually go in what stage. So I think these two others can definitely add to it.
So this was exactly one of the questions asked to me in an interview. What are the top 4 skills that product management should have? So my answer was a different answer, but the interviewer told me this answer: customer empathy, as Sunidhi pointed out, then data-driven decision-making, then problem solving, and the 4th one is communication. So these are the 4 broad categories as pointed out to me in the interview, and I did not make it to the next interview because my answer was wrong. So hopefully Vaibhav, yours is right.
So Sunidhi is from IMK, so we are we are getting trained.
And also, I think Mansi mentioned communication. So that's actually a very important point, because product managers actually have to deal with a lot of teams. They don't just work with the development team, they actually connect with the sales marketing team, or let's say the legal team, the UX design team. So communication is something is definitely, which is very important to put across your point to different teams that you're dealing with. So.
Right. So basically 4 great points by Mansi and Sunidhi, which is customer empathy, strong, strategic decision-making skills, problem solving, and communication. Apart from that, Shikhar or Riya, do you want to add anything, or I think this is a broad enough skill set?
And this is broad enough. The other, a couple of things that I'd want to add is that, one, it's a very generalist role. It's not a specialized role. So cross-domain knowledge is very important. So one day you will be solving a customer problem, the other day you will be speaking to folks in marketing and sales, the third day you will be speaking to developers. So having that sort of cross-domain knowledge is very important. Secondly, just to elaborate on what Mansi said about communication, it is also equally important to have good articulation of thought and clarity of thought. So you will have to communicate to multiple stakeholders, but for each of those things that communication to happen well, you must yourself have that vision very clearly defined for yourself.
Perfect. Got it.
Adding to the point which Shikhar said, so during my experience from an interview, the interviewer focused much more on the interpersonal skills, because he told that you will be working with the cross-functional teams and every team would come up with different problem. So I think, as he said, that there need to be a clarity of thought. So that would be most important. And secondly, I think customer empathy is most important and underrated skills, which is, I would say, is there. Because if we say it's a B2C or a B2B product, in both the things, there are user at the other end, and we need to think from their shoes. So I think the empathy for the customer, I mean, that is one of the most important from my point of view. And because I'm working with Walmart, who has got billions of users out there in US. And see, the Indian customer and the US customer work in a different mindset. So we need to understand how they work and how they purchase the products. So I think, customer empathy is one of the most top priority for to be a product manager.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Riya. I think a fascinating point about how the Indian customer is different from the US customer. You have to, as a product man, you have to think about all those things as well. Great. Okay. I hope that answered your question, Vaibhav. Let's look at the CV aspect. How do you build the right CV for product man roles? And we have actually 2 questions from the audience members, which are sort of linked to that, to this question only. One is, which Soumya has asked, that are there any specific case competitions which we can target? And secondly, Dipanshi has asked, and this is a very, very, once again, a very, very often asked question, and that is, would you recommend any short-term courses which could help the person specifically for summers? So I'll repeat the questions because I've loaded you with questions now. One is, how do you make the right CV, right? Linked with any case competitions which you would suggest, or any courses which you would suggest?
I will take the first question, that regarding the CV. So most of the candidates, what they do wrong is they make the CV heavy on one side. Maybe they're making it too heavy on the technical side, and whereas the management side, they undermine it. But I would say the balanced CV would be a perfect CV, because when you are managing your academics, your non-academics, as well as your internship or your work experience. So while I was building my CV, I kept in mind that it's all balanced and it is not much more weighted in one side. So it might appear that I'm more technical and I might lack customer empathy. So I do not have to project that I am just good at one side and I might lack skills in other side. So it's better to have a balanced CV where you are projecting that, okay, you did well in this academics, you do have non-academic skills, you have been part of different clubs, you have taken internship. which are in different fields. Not only, let's say, if you're coming from an IT background, you have done the internship not only in one field. So I think a balanced CV would add more, and you can, I would advise the student to make different variations and get it checked from the senior who made the CV for the companies like that and who got in. So yeah, that would really help.
So yeah, completely agree with Rio on this, that get your resume checked as many times with your seniors, with your alums. That would help a lot. My two takeaways from CV making was, one is quantify wherever you can. And this would mean that if you say that maybe I was first in XYZ competition, it does not tell the reviewer what exactly the impact was. It from 1 to 30? Was it from 100 people? So quantify in relative terms wherever possible, also in your work life. So it would be that maybe you did something which led to 30% of the revenue increase, or 10%, or this much. So all that quantification is number one, because it also tells your data drivenness, which is a core skill as a product manager. Second thing is using impact words. So rather than saying I want this, you might be able to say something like drove a team of this, impacted like this, or maybe spoke to. So use impact verb in the initial phase of your sentence. That kind of helps. So there are two formats we used to follow, and like others can just like pitch in here. One is the STAR format, which is like, I forgot the full form of it, but it's like situation, task, action, and result. So this was one of the formats that we used to follow to tell the situation you are in, then what was the task, and what was the action you like put out, and what was the result of it, how much things happened, how much customers were impacted, stuff like that. So these are the two things that might help you. Yeah.
I think also, going back to the previous question where we highlighted the skills, you essentially want to highlight those 4 fundamental skills through your CV. So you want to highlight your technical ability through your education and through the projects that you've done. You want to highlight sort of your, say if you want to highlight that aspect around user research, you want to highlight any market research or any marketing related projects or anything that you've done. You want to highlight your collaboration and communication. You do that through your PORs. You want to highlight, so basically it goes back to what is it that you're trying to show. That forms the crux of the CV creation process. In terms of, the second aspect to your question around, any courses or any other certifications that one could do around this, I personally feel that is, there are no hard and fast courses. Like there is no one source that if you do this, you will succeed. But I also feel that in a lot of cases, product management, because it is such a new field, even faculty members on campus, on various campuses, and they're not very well equipped to answer questions. And it's an evolving field. Like the demands of a role will change day to day. So it usually helps to be aware of what is going in the industry. So there are like these LinkedIn groups such as PM School and others, which are very good sources. Just keep following them. You don't have to do a course, but just, they keep on posting questions, they keep on posting discussion threads. And so you can follow those blogs, those sources to keep yourself updated with what is going on in the product world.
I can pitch in about the case competitions. So generally there are corporate level case competitions in product management like Microsoft, Myntra, and then there are some college level, which other IIMs or other colleges organize. So not just for the sake of winning or gaining a position. I think case competitions are a great way to learn about how you go about solving a case, which is a very popular question which gets asked in your interviews, like how they give you a product case and you have to solve it. And these case competitions are exactly like that. They'll give you a product statement and you basically have to, solve every step of it. Like you create user personas, you create the user journey, you define the features, you create wireframes, you set success metrics. So through this process, you'll actually learn a lot, and this would really help. And also, as Shikhar said about the courses, I completely agree to that. And I think just rather than doing certifications, what would help is if you do a live project, with a startup or something. So small internship would also help, where you get a flavor of, what exactly goes into product management. So that would be a better alternative to just doing a certification from some website.
So
Adding to what Sunidhi said, you also get like-minded people on the campus. So let's say if you're prepping for the interview, you can go up to them, give them the case study, and they would also do the same for you. So if you're doing a case competition, this could also help you in getting along with like-minded people who are also looking for opportunities in the same field, that is product management. So yeah, the case, like participating in case competition would definitely help.
yeah, I'll also just add one point.
Yes.
So completely agree with the power of solving cases. And apart from what comes formally to you through your maybe education or MBA, like Dare to Compete, there are a lot of communities, as Shikhar mentioned, PM School, the Product Folks, Producthood, which have weekly or monthly case competition that they offer on LinkedIn. So even if you're not part of an MBA school, and maybe you cannot participate in Dare to Compete case competitions, you can always go and use online resources to just practice them out and just build your portfolio. So just follow all those communities on LinkedIn. You're already on inside IIM, so I think you're on the right track, but just expand your horizon. Sure.
Great. Great, Mansi. So what I'll do is I'll just summarize all of this because there is a lot of information which has been floated. First thing is, as Ria mentioned, have a balanced CV that will really help you. Secondly, get your resume checked by a lot of seniors. Now, this is very, very important. Your seniors have been there, done that. They know what companies want to see, what they don't want to see. So it's always good to have it checked. Secondly, try to use a star framework. Please read more on that and use it. All the B school students use that framework. Also try to quantify things as much as possible. This even works for consulting CVs. We love to see numbers. We as Indians, I think, love to see numbers everywhere. so that's there. Apart from that, as Shikhar mentioned, there are groups on LinkedIn which you can follow. PM School, PM Mode. Have I missed on anything? PM School, PM Mode. Anything else you want to?
So the Product Folks, Product School, there are a lot. You just search for product, you will find a lot of this. And also I've shared a list of like 10 communities to follow on LinkedIn in case I don't know. Just
perfect, guys. So if you want to read more, and specifically, I think I know Mansi personally that she does a lot of content for product management aspirants. So guys, do follow her. You can. I'm sure you will get to know more about it through her writings as well. Okay. Apart from that, as Shikhar mentioned, that courses are not really needed. If you just join these groups, you will be good enough. It will be good enough. Lastly, as Sunidhi mentioned, try to do case competition not so that you can win them, but more so you can understand how to solve these cases. And as Ria mentioned, you will also get the chance to meet like-minded people, which MBA is all about. So I think that's it about how you can differentiate your CV. Okay, let's move on. Let's take one question from the audience. From an audience member called Suyash, which is, I have 3 years work experience in customer service, which is Amazon. So if will the product management companies consider non-tech experience as work experience?
Definitely, Suyash. They'll like work experience is work experience. Because there are a lot of transferable skills that you might have gotten from your role. It might be communication, it might be stakeholder management, which is fundamentally very same to what product manager will go ahead and do. So technical experience is not a must. I have friends who were working in oil industry, like oil refinery industry, and then they have moved to product management, or they were working in semiconductor industry. So it's about how you portray what you have done in a way that it matches, although highlighting all those 4 skills, which are very fundamental. Problem solving could be done in a tech space, could be done in a not tech space as well. So just portray it that way and they'll definitely be considered.
Perfect. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next question, which is how do you prepare for such interviews? Now, as a student, I heard that one of the most typical questions which is asked in PM roles is, which is your favorite product and why do you like it? Now, I'm sure there are many such typical questions, guys. So why don't you share some of them, some typical questions which are frequently asked in interviews? And apart from that, maybe if you want to shed some light on some unique experiences you had while getting interviewed.
Right. So I think for me personally, I felt that so for my summer internship, I had prepped primarily for consulting. I hadn't done any product PM prep for my summers, but I realized during the finals that that prep for consulting actually helped me because there are a lot of transferable skills. At the end of the day, most of the interview questions are going to be about problem solving and a data driven approach. So there is this category of questions called root cause analysis, which is very similar to profitability consulting questions. You just deep dive and in a structured form until you reach the answer. There are going to be questions around metrics and what do you track from a customer perspective to gauge the success of your app.
Right.
And even that can be broken down in a very consulting framework manner, in that you just like start with a top level metric and then just keep breaking it down further and further. So I personally felt that consulting prep helped me a lot. In terms of that specific question around the favorite app and deep diving into it, I think what the interviewer is looking for is primarily that you don't only focus on the surface elements. You can actually think of something like a product manager. So they're looking for product manager thinking more than anything. So they're not going to question you if you say that Book My Show is your favorite app or say any other app is your favorite app. What they're actually looking for is what comes after that, the questions that they will ask pertaining to that app and how well do you answer them.
So adding to the point which Shikhar said, usually in consulting, they are looking for the one answer. So even you might know, Akshay, like during the interview, they were looking only for, okay, why this is emerging, why this situation or problem is emerging. But usually I've seen in the product manager interviews, they are looking for open-ended solutions. They are looking how you approach it or how differently you can think of it. So I think if you're preparing for the consulting interview also, this will help you here as well, because it will give you direction and spectrum where you can think, okay, it can be a profit loss case, or it can be a like new market entry approach case. So I think if you're prepping for the, as Shikhar mentioned, for consulting cases, it will help you here as well. And whereas in this product management field, they are mostly looking how you approach that problem. This is from my experience. And on campus also, we were prepping and we were taking interviews for juniors. We were also looking who has got the best solution and not a particular solution. So yeah.
So in my experience, there are like 5 major categories of questions that are asked. So one is the very basic product design. In this, it might be asked you to maybe say design a new platform for users doing this, or it might be an improvement question as in improve YouTube. So these are the product design questions. The second bucket is analytic questions. In this, as Shikhar mentioned, metrics are involved, and it might be some kind of a data driven or analytics driven. Even root cause analysis kind of jumps into it, where you kind of traverse through what could be the root cause of this problem. For example, in my Swiggy interview, it was asked that it's 6 p.m. in the evening, and you got to know that rather than, for example, say X number of orders, there are just X by 2. So now you are about to go home. What do you do and how do you solve it? So they are judging me on behavioral, like how do I approach the problem, as well as my analytic skills and my approach to the problem. So this is a second bucket. The third bucket is optional, which is technical question. It might be asked given which company you are going for. Browser Stack and Postman may ask for it. Other companies might not ask for it. A broader bucket which has come these days is a product strategy, which looks at macro level of things. It might ask you, do you want to integrate Spotify services with WhatsApp? So this is a macro level kind of a question. You do not have to go into the nitty-gritties of how to solve it, but do you want to do it or not? How do you take that decision? And last but not the least are the behavioral questions, which would be popped up everywhere. You would not know about it, and they might be judging you on it, because the fit of a person with the company's culture is one of the very important aspect for any company. So these were like the 5 buckets I am aware of. And then I think guesstimates also come in. Guesstimate is a very, which is asked in, I think, consulting as well. And one of the questions were something like, what is the weight of Mount Everest? So you just have to kind of on the spot go about it, how to go about it. So it's very fun. Even the practicing for interviews. At least after 15 days, it becomes fun. but it's
getting into your dream company, it becomes fun.
Yeah, after crying for 2 days, then getting into the dream companies becomes. Okay.
Great. Sunidhi, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, so I think Mansi has categorized it perfectly, like the kind of questions that are asked. I just wanted to mention like resources that you can use for preparation. So like there are two really good books that you can target. One is Cracking the PM Interview, and then there is Decode and Conquer. So these have solved cases, and they actually also provide, so there are certain frameworks that you should look at to basically how to approach these product design questions when they're asked. So go through them, understand how you should structure these cases, and also there are many solved cases which you can discuss with a group. And so these are some of the resources that can be looked at while preparing.
Just one thing. So in our year, a few companies were also having an intermediate round after CV selection, but before the final interviews. And this was more of a submission round. So I think Microsoft had it on our campus where you were given a problem statement and you had to make a PowerPoint deck around it. So in this case, it usually helps to have skills around, product. They were looking for product design mockups for the product and things like that. So some software skills around, say, Figma or Canva or something that you can use in this particular scenario also helps. Secondly, what Sunidhi mentioned, that there are a lot of frameworks, but and knowing those frameworks is actually very helpful. But at the same time, like one should be mindful of never mentioning in the interview that they're using that specific framework, because that is taken as a negative.
I think in the mock interviews, each one of us has made this mistake. I remember doing a mock case interview with a person, and I was using the Answers matrix, and I specifically mentioned it. I'm using the Answers matrix. Great. Okay. So I think the major points highlighted here was Sunidhi highlighted some good resources which you can go through: Cracking the PM Interviews and Decode and Conquer. Apart from that, Mansi mentioned five categories of questions which are normally asked. So prepare for those 5 questions. I don't want to repeat the entire framework once again, but I think that is very well done. And that's basically the kind of questions which you will be asked during your PM interviews. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is now with we are almost going to finish in the next 5 to 6 minutes. So let's take up the question, which is college is going to start now within I think a month or month and a half. And as soon as college starts, summer placements are just around the corner. This question is, I know Mansi is not able to relate because of ISC, but for most of us, college, summers are just like, as soon as college starts, summers pops up. So what kind of advice would you want to give to them so that they can ace their Broadman interviews for summers? And Mansi, please feel free to give your 2 cents as well.
Sure. Because we also, like, after 3 months, we are also into directly placement. So,
is it? So even in ISB,
so for example, I started in June, and I was on campus in August, and January I was giving the interviews. And for IIMs, it's kind of a good thing that people do internship first. So there's a cushion effect. Right. You have internships, we have placements, or no. So we don't have anything.
I think that's one small benefit, I think, because sometimes what happens is, as soon as you enter the B school, you might not be as well equipped to handle the interview. So you sort of get another chance to.
Yeah, so it's a good thing about IIMs, but the one thing for us is that you have to be very clear when you're coming to ISB, because it's just a 1-year course. What do you want from it, and how do you want to pursue it? But definitely that's a plus. That's always a cushion effect.
Right, guys. So any advice you want to give to your juniors?
So I think apart from what we've already highlighted in terms of the skills, the CV preparation and everything, 2 things that I thought helped me were, one, I think any product aspirant should do a bit of consult prep, because not for what you learn out of the consult prep, but the structured thinking that it provides you, because that helps in any kind of interview, whether that is, say, a product related interview, a marketing interview, or say even an HR interview. If you go in with structured thinking and articulated thoughts, that definitely helps. Secondly, don't indulge in the FOMO effect. A lot of kids on campus try to do everything that everyone else is doing. So you should have some clarity about what is it that you want to get out of the summers process, and have this. I personally thought that this helped me, that having a small group of like-minded people around you. So when you're prepping for summer, say there are 400 people in your batch, you can't be benchmarking yourself against everyone or preparing with everyone. So have this small group of like-minded people, maybe 5 of your friends who are also doing the same kind of prep, and have that group sort of intact during the entire process.
So I just have a different opinion on on preparing. So one thing was that a very close friend of mine was preparing for both consultancy and product management, and he got shortlisted for both McKinsey and Atlassian. But I think in the end he kind of got lost on both, because I think too much, practicing for both, it might be possible for some people, but it might become too much or like a bit overboard for some other people. So in case you're very clear that you want to do product management, then I would say that even in product management, you can take parts or the macro level thinking, the structured thinking, you can practice those specifically rather than doing the entire consultancy prep. But if you're not clear and you are just kind of, dabbling through both the options and you want to keep them open, then that's your call. But I think like having that clarity earlier kind of helps, because in the end, you just have to take one job. So there was a friend who got into both McKinsey and Microsoft as well. So there are cases on both ends, but you have to evaluate yourself. How much would you be able to do in the time you have, and what will you have to lose on if you have to do this as well? So that's just one different opinion.
Right. Riya or Suniti, you want to add anything? Any tips you want to give to your juniors?
One point I want to add is like paying attention on the CV. So usually in the phase of prepping, students get lost of the touch of their CV. So they're not prepping about their CV. So whatever is mentioned on your CV, you should have a story about it. You should be able to answer any question which an interview can ask from your CV. So even if you're prepping for any kind of interview, be it consulting or in investment banking, I think a candidate should be thoroughly prepared with the CV, what they have mentioned, why they have mentioned. And I think they should not lie around their CV, because the interviewer might get to know and that will create a bad impression. So yeah, that's one of my advices.
I agree with, all the points that have been put forth. And one thing I want to emphasize on is, to be working on product cases. Like if you're targeting product management roles, then you should definitely be working on product cases and just see what works for you. Either if it, individually you find it comfortable working alone, or if you want to work in a group. I preferred working in a group because sometimes you may be overlooking something and there can be a fresh perspective someone else brings in. So that definitely helps.
So just one last point is that I live by mock interviews. I really cannot emphasize how much it helped me, because during interviews, like understanding everything is one aspect, but during interviews in that pressure scenario, when the other person is looking right into your soul, so it becomes very difficult to answer and be structured and come up with new solutions. So how much ever you practice for that particular day, that much more you'll be equipped for it. So that kind of a simulations, running it again and again with peers, with alums, helped me a lot. It helped me from not cracking razor pace second interview to cracking 3 job interviews. That difference was all because of mock interviews for me. So that's the last advice from me. Yeah.
Right. Great. So if I were to summarize, as Shikhar mentioned, have a small group of like-minded people who you can practice cases with. Practice and do a lot of cases. Like Suniti also mentioned, maybe you can focus more on product cases because that's the domain which you are, eyeing. Secondly, as Riya mentioned, pay close attention on your CV. Please spend a lot of time. The recruiter doesn't know you, so the only impression he has of you is through your CV. So don't lie. And also, any question, anything from your CV can be asked. So, and I'm specifically in consulting, I've seen this trend that sometimes if you mention, let's say that you have organize a fest, maybe they can ask you a question with respect to, organizing a fest on, on the spot. So be very clear out what you have you written on your CV. Lastly, as Mansi mentioned, do a lot of mock interviews, because it's okay to get insulted or feel demoralized before the final interview. And doing mock interviews with different people also helps, because every person has a different style of taking interviews. So this is something which every senior will also recommend to you. Okay, so before we wrap this up, we'll just take one last question, which is, so as you know that if we actually look at Prodman placement statistics, probably only 10% or 15% roles of people get into Prodman roles. Now, there is a possibility that sometimes even lesser than that. I mean, it could differ from college to college, but that is the rough figure which I have seen. Now, there is a chance that there's a possibility that you wanted Prodman, but you could not get it. So do you have any tips, or have you seen people getting Prodman roles off campus? What are your views on that? Is it possible? And if yes, any skill sets which someone should develop? I mean, apart from the ones which we've already discussed.
I mean, as we already discussed, I think a lot of people actually most people enter Prodman outside campus. And these are usually, a lot of them are ex-consultants exiting consulting as an industry. So reasons could be a multitude, I mean, focusing on a specific industry or just in terms of work-life balance. But those opportunities are always open. It just helps to, on campus, it's easier because you have a larger universe of options available to you at one time. And secondly, recruiters are more desperate to hire you as compared to off campus. But off campus, it just helps to align your CV with the specific roles and responsibilities of the role that you're applying to. Speaking to people who are currently in that role or who've exited from that role to understand the role in greater detail. And I think, I mean, in terms of skill set, the skill set remains the same. So, and even the process remains largely the same outside campus also. So those things will be constant.
Great. Thank you, Shikhar. Okay, last question, 100% last question. Asked by an audience member, which is Avinash Kaushik. So he has asked that, has anyone of you taken courses from Masters Union, Re-Level Up, Grad, Product School, PM, Product Alliance, etc.? And if yes, could you share your reviews? So has anyone of you taken any courses from any of these places?
So I've done a couple of courses, but like I can share some if any. Okay. So I've done, there was a course, I think, called Insurjo from the product folks. So I took it up. But actually, apart from the money I've paid to ISB, I've not paid for anything else outside. So there were a lot of free courses that were going on in these communities, like the product folks was there. Then by PM School, there was a Tech 101 for PMs. So just to brush up my technical, and technical, by technical, I do not mean coding and everything, but just the fundamentals of technicals, APIs and stuff, because I was coming from a development background. So only those couple of courses I did. And I did not follow it through that, like every weekend I was doing it. It was more of that I got the videos for it. And I would just, like, before, if there was any topic that I was not good at, I just watched through it. So these were the two things. And then I think Exponent is a very good resource in terms of videos and courses that they provide. So there are videos on YouTube available from them. And even there are courses from them, but they cost a lot. So I think that depends on you if you want to pay for it. But I just went through all the free stuff because there is a lot online. So I've done courses and they were good knowledge. So it's basically, if you read about it or if you see the courses, I think it's fine. I think as Shikhar mentioned very like earlier, that courses particularly you do not need to do. It's more about maybe you read a Ken article or TechCrunch or just go through articles. That also works fine. So it's up to you. Yeah.
But I think all the panelists will surely agree that the best course which you can do is the advanced product management course, which is available on Inside IIM. Go check it out and do that. Right. So I think with that, guys, we'll just wrap up the webinar. Thank you so much to all the panelists for taking out time on a Sunday. I'm sure that the aspirants learned a lot from you guys. So Mansi, Shikhar, Riya, Sunidhi, thank you so much. Personally, I think this has been a great discussion. And I learned many new things from this. Also, big thank you to all the audience members who tuned in. We hope to see you next week too, at the same time, where we discuss HR roles with a new set of panelists, a new set of talented panelists. So once again, thank you guys. See you soon. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.